Hello everybody! Happy April the 1st. And joke's on you, you're going to get another hour of the Zen of Ben today. So I hope I don't piss you off too much giving you 3 hours of Ben, but I want to make sure that there's no doubt you understand who I am, what I stand for, and make the right decision in 2016. Let me represent you, and I'm going to be able to help you. And before we get going, let me just give you my info here. This is my email address and my telephone number. And feel free to call me. It's easy to remember my name because all you have to think about is Coca-Cola. And how do you remember Coca-Cola? Well, things get better with Coke, and it's the Pepsi generation and everything like that. So it's easy to remember the name Cola, and I don't expect you to forget it. And once again, what is our golden rule is to only vote in Oath Keepers and to throw out the incumbents. And I think on the ballot now, they don't have to put the fact that they're an incumbent in there. Gee, I wonder why they wanted to do that. They took the word incumbent off the ballot because they didn't want to be labeled as an incumbent. I guess they know everybody's PO'd at the incumbents because they're getting blamed for so many things. But folks, there's a reason why the incumbents are getting blamed for so many things. It's because they're responsible for all the things bad that are happening. I mean, they put us in a war zone. I'm waiting for the bombs to fall. You know, I mean, we're right here. We could get shot at any moment by the terrorists. Ah, for God's sakes. I mean, Vietnam wasn't even a declared war, but we're in a declared war zone. I mean, at some point you got to say these people are drinking too much alcohol. God forbid, if my grandmother were alive today, she'd have been screaming at me long ago, don't say anything about anybody. I mean, remember I told you they came from Italy. They came from Italy because freedom of speech was unthinkable at the time they came here. They didn't have all the inalienable rights that we have. They came here because they wanted freedom, and they were starving to death in Italy too. Was the other thing. They didn't have any food and couldn't find a job, and it was just, life was tough over there. And when they came here, it wasn't so easy either. They did anything they could to get a job. I remember asking my mom, you know, what did Grandpa do for a living when he got here? Well, the depression hit and everything, and I mean, they couldn't find a job. She said he had a broom, and he just started sweeping the street until one day somebody gave him a job. But he just was sweeping the street until somebody tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Okay, you're in. We're going to give you a job." He ended up getting a job working at the school, one of the school systems in Philadelphia. And he eventually became the manager of the engineer who ran the boiler, because back in those days they heated the school with a boiler, and so he had to watch all day. It was his job to make sure that the boiler stayed fueled with coal, and to make sure that the pressure on the gauge was proper, and so that he managed that the boiler wouldn't explode. That was his job. And that was actually a really good job. Having earned money in the private sector, and then being ripped off by Wall Street and ripped off by mortgage lenders when I was doing that big commercial transaction. And so you know, I had invested 2 years of my time getting up to the point where I was able to close. I had to buy a bond that enhanced my credit. Now I'm telling you all my secrets again. Now the way I was able to get a mortgage was my credit was very good, but it had to be more than good, spectacular credit. I bought a credit enhancement bond where I paid a lot of money to an insurance company to co-sign the loan for me, and I had to pay an awful lot, and I lost that money. A little bit of it was given back to me, I think, but I lost most of it. And because there was a big question about, well, did you get the mortgage or not get the mortgage if the bank went bankrupt? I mean, there was a clause in there that said if you didn't get your mortgage, you're supposed to get your money back. But but I did get my mortgage, but I didn't. So there were enough questions that I ended up losing money. And oh boy, let me just remind you, because I know in every show you've probably been staring at these bullets. These are 223 weatherproofed ammunition. And I just want to tell you that it's weatherproof because that's a symbol of a terrorist. But I already explained to you why I'm not a terrorist. We use those to go spearfishing out in the ocean. I haven't gone spearfishing like that for years because the spear gun got stolen. But I still have a few rounds left. And when you're spearfishing for really big fish, it would normally take you maybe a half an hour to get into the boat because it's too big. You could shoot it with the power, what they call a power head, and it kills the fish right away. And it's easier to lump the fish back to the boat. Anyway, so I just wanted to tell you, some of them, every time the police do a sneak and peek around my house, which I'm sure they do, they don't tell me, they're supposed to tell me, they steal one of these. So they violate your constitutional rights. And this whole thing, when my spear gun got stolen, this whole crate here, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 20 rounds here. This box of 223s. And that's nail polish, by the way. We use nail polish. We just put it around the primer and put it around where the bullet joins the jacket so that the water doesn't leak in. Because we're down 100 feet down in the water, so the water might leak in. But because I had filed some papers with the government telling them that I had some suspicions about 9/11, so I was dealing with thousands of people in the real estate business, and my office was in Daytona, and I had come across some people that seemed suspicious, and they asked me to do some bad things, and they were affiliated with other people that I knew who they were affiliated with, and so it kind of I knew something bad was going to happen. I had a bad feeling, so I filed some papers, and then when it did happen, I asked for the reward, and they just never gave me the reward. I told you they gave me the IRS audit, and I later found out when I saw on the TV Lois Lerner, when I saw her being grilled by Congress, I recognized her face. It was her. And I told you, all she wanted was my telephone records. See, back in those days, they couldn't get your phone records. So 1 month after 9/11 hit, they, when I asked them for some, I asked them for some reward money for some information I provided, they just audited me. It's like, shut the F up, Cola, But as an insurance guy, I'm telling you, that whole thing is, from the beginning, I believe this is just an insurance scam. I think the owner of the building, we all kind of know who he is, but I mean, I wouldn't have insured him because the building had violations, had city violations on it for asbestos, and it had to be removed. When you have a commercial building, well, any real estate broker you talk to will tell you, when you have a commercial building and you sell it, if there's asbestos in the building, it has to be remediated. That means it has to be removed and cleaned. Otherwise, you can't get a mortgage on the place. And so I guess then somehow he was able to get financing or whatever. And then he bought that policy, in July, and then 2 months later, and he had a terrorism rider on there. I mean, that's kind of, I'd like to look at the policy because I'm an insurance expert, so I'd like to read that policy. I never saw the policy, but I did meet him one time, and it was not pleasant, and I never wanted to talk to the fella again. I was kind of pushed into meeting him back in the 80s because I was doing very well as a broker in New Jersey, and I don't think he had a license in New Jersey to sell real estate, but he did in New York. And so and my lawyer being Jewish, and his investigator was Jewish, and he was They had connections that we're going to talk about. But anyway, we were all pretty much friendly. Had lunch together every day or breakfast every day. And but I was sort of summoned to his office. I told you this story. What the heck am I guess I'm running out of stuff to talk to. April Fool's on you. No, this is all true. So I, was pretty much ordered to go up there to meet the guy because he wanted to meet me because I was closing some pretty big commercial real estate transactions, and I had a broker's license in New Jersey, and I guess he needed a dude in Jersey who had a license because he was only licensed in New York. So the so-and-so and associates, you know who I mean, on the top floor over there, the building called me over, and I met his lawyer, talked to his lawyer for 20 minutes. He's a tall, lanky guy with round glasses, yuppie looking dude, a very nice fella. He left the room before the man came in because he said, "I don't want any part of this." That's what he said, and then he left. And he left me there, and then these guys walked in on the top floor. There's no way out of that top floor, by the way, because it's all beneath the conference room on the top floor of the building. There's file rooms. It's 2 layers of file rooms, or 1 layer of file rooms, and then there's the associates. Larry, what's his name, and the associates there. And so, and they have an elevator that goes up to the thing, to the top. So you can't leave if you change your mind about wanting to meet the guy. You can't just get in the elevator and leave, because if you come down the elevator, you're going to land in his office, and then you have to go sideways like 30 yards through his offices into the main foyer of his office, and then from there you go down, and then you're in the main building, and then you go down. So I was in the tippy top of the top, you know. But I never shook his hand. I just got yelled at for about 10 or 15 minutes with the window open and the guys with the guns. I thought they were going to throw me out the window. I tell you, I've been through some shit, people. It's all true. But you see, when I tried to say what I knew, I was just audited by the Internal Revenue Service. Basically, what my own government was telling me, shut up. But see, I think that the whole thing was an insurance scam because of the asbestos. Even if you throw everything else out, I mean, he wasn't killed in the blast, so he's running this big real estate company, but he wasn't there that day. The building had asbestos in it that he was supposed to clean up, and the fine, God knows how big that fine had to be. Being in New York City, I mean, you're probably in the worst place in the world to get fined on a daily fine for something. So he had that facing him, and the economy was going down, and the vacancy was at an all-time high, so he couldn't find tenants. And he had this big insurance policy. I mean, the place was worth more burned down than it was worth all in one piece. So I guess a business decision was made that just, you pull it, and it goes down. And any insurance guy knows that if an airplane hits your building, that's a falling object. And if it's an act of terrorism, and you get double indemnity. Supposedly the policy had a rider on there. I think it paid twice as much if it was an act of terrorism. So I have to read the policy. If I could read the policy, I could. I'm a 4-decade General Lines agent. I could read that policy and tell you how suspicious it. Well, I haven't seen the policy, but from what I've heard, if what I heard is true, and that policy was designed to cover that loss and taken out right before the loss. It's awful suspicious. Seems suspicious to me. And then my country. Once that happened, I guess there really wasn't any motive. Now this guy is best friends with Benjamin Netanyahu. I shouldn't even be telling you any of this stuff, but I just know this because I knew the fellow that was one of his one of his personal investigators in the state where I lived, and he's dead now too. I mean, people are all dead now, so different things happen to him. But anyway, then my country used the whole thing as an excuse to do whatever they wanted to do. And I mean, if you gave them a license to do whatever they wanted to do, they did whatever they wanted to do as if they had a license to do it. And look, I love my country. I say the Pledge of Allegiance. I told the police what I knew before 9/11. Everything I knew. I called the FBI because I didn't think the police were following up enough. I've got the phone bill here if you don't believe me, the original. And I got copies backed up in case anything weird happens to me. The whole thing, all the file will get released. But I was told that he had, I was wondering how he ended up over here. And I was wondering why the guys had guns up there. And I was told that the government protects them because the real estate, once you reach that kind of a level and you're a commercial real estate broker, you're a capital, you're a capital asset important person to the state of Israel. So you're protected. You're protected by the full faith, and credibility and firepower of or whatever of the state of Israel. So that's how we got the the men with the Uzis. But they scared the crap out of me. I mean, I know I had dealt with Jewish clients, and it never did them wrong or anything. But when they opened the window, I thought they were going to throw me out the window. I mean, that was uncalled for, opening the window. It was supposed to just be a meet and greet. Figured he'd shake my hand and we'd sit down and talk and have a cup of coffee or something. But that, those guys with the guns and all that was just over the top. And of course the lawyer, he left. He didn't want anything to do with it. He left it just as they were coming in the room. He left, and then they came in the room. And I was up here all by myself facing these guys. My grandmother and my grandfather, both sides of my family, always said, say nothing and don't ever talk about politics or religion. I'm talking about, I can't avoid talking about politics because I want to lead the country and turn our ship of state in the right direction. But I'm the only person that knows some of these things. I don't know exactly how this thing played out, but I just know as a very, very, very experienced insurance man and an adjuster that, at the very least, this thing looks like a fraudulent insurance claim. And because people died, there's no statute of limitations. It's an insurance claim where people died. It should be reinvestigated. And if it were my call, I'd look into it. A lot of people wanted to testify and had things to say, and I think that whole thing was a joke. When you have a loss, I remember when I was burglarized here in 2010, I was down at the seashore, my wife and I, and we came back. Our house was halfway cleaned out. All my computers were stolen. And the computers before that were stolen in the prior burglary. Seemed like nobody wanted me to have it. And the burglary before that, my computer was not stolen, but smashed, and buckets of water were poured on it until it burned out. And I had Colorado tape backups, and they were erased. So said the Colorado Tape Company. This goes back to when I moved here. And there's so many things that could happen, and it's just, it's a coincidence, I'll tell you another funny coincidence too. Right when I moved to Florida, which was after I met Larry, and the Ramada deal went down the drain, where the bank went broke and all. I was sitting in my house. I had rented a house at the end of a cul-de-sac in Ormond Beach. I'll never forget. It's a single-family home, a nice neighborhood, had a 2-car garage, and I was just got home from work, and I took a shower, and I had a bathrobe on, and I had made spaghetti and meatballs and everything, and sat down with my girlfriend, was going to have something to eat for dinner with candlelight and everything, because I'd met a real hot girl in the process of this deal, and boy, she was daggone pretty, prettiest thing you ever saw. Anyway, she was there, and so we were going to have a dinner, candlelight dinner together, which I fixed. And the next thing I know, I heard this tremendously loud automobile with a V8 motor, like a 400 and some cubic inch, like a 454 Oldsmobile motor. So my ears still wet from my last swim. Excuse me. So this car pulled around, drove over my front lawn. It was like an old Delta 98. You know what a Delta 98 is? If you're old like me, you know what a Delta 98 is. It drove over my front lawn. And I lived at the end of the cul-de-sac, like I said, so they went to the end of the cul-de-sac. And it wasn't like he was speeding and he just, went too fast or something like that, because my whole street was only about 3 or 4 houses in depth, and there was no street on the other side, so it wasn't like anybody could come down the street. They had to turn onto my street, and so they weren't going fast. But they came up my driveway, and they went to the left side of my house and drove around the left side of my house, and they're running over every bush and tree in the way, just bulldozing the trees and bushes down. And they went around into the yard, and there was no muffler on the car. It was just boom, 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 real loud. And I looked at my girlfriend, and she looked at me. And I mean, we were just the whole house was vibrating, and we were. I said, call the police immediately. So she called the police, and I went and I got my Beretta shotgun, my semi-automatic military police one with the plastic stocks, and cocked it back. It was a semi-automatic 9-shot tubular magazine, blacked out Beretta with a chrome barrel, nice gun. And I put about the whole box of shells in my pants pocket, my pocket of my bath robe. Put the shells in there so I could reload. I had 9 shells in there, or 8 shells in there, 1 in the chamber, 9 total. And the car came around, and she was on the phone with the 911, and the police were on their way. And I heard the car go around the left side of the house, and it went into the yard. And it pulled a right turn. When it got around the left side of my house, the guy turned right and went into the yard, and right even with my patio door in the backyard. And I had a privacy fence behind me, and then he stopped right there, but he left the engine running. So the engine was just going boom, 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 boom. And I mean, it was so loud, the house was just shaking. So I had the gun pointed straight at the car from inside the house, and it was sort of ducked down behind the sofa. And I told my girlfriend, I said, stay in the hallway, but keep the police on the line. And so they said, we're coming, we're coming, we're coming. And I covered the car with the gun, and the doors to the car opened. It was a 4-door car, big old car, and like 3 or 4 guys rolled out, and they pretended they were dead. They in the back seat, they opened the door and they rolled out, and they laid there in the yard like this, pretending like they had been shot or something. All of them rolled out, pretending that they were dead, out the front door, out the back door, and out the other side. And the driver hunched over the steering wheel like this, with his head like this. And he just laid there like that. and you would think he'd be worried about the police coming, you know, but he looked like he was passed out. Now, I didn't go outside because I didn't know if they were armed or if they were trying to get me to go out to goad me into maybe a gunfight or something, and they were just faking that they were on the ground, and when I came out, maybe they would shoot me or something. But I just stayed in the house. The police came. They came running around the house, and a couple of them banged on the door, and we let them in. And they went through the house, and they started asking me, you know, who the hell are you? Get out your license. And then they're checking me out more than they're checking these guys out, you know. And I've got the candles are on the table. I've got the tablecloth out, and the spaghetti and the meatballs, and nice dishes and everything, nice furniture. I'm living in I think it was a house that today would probably be worth about $400,000. So it's a nice house at the end of a cul-de-sac with a beautiful front to it, all, you know, sodded front lawn. It was meticulously maintained. And this car just went around the side of my house and parked in the yard with these dead people laying out all around the car, pretending they were dead. And the guy who was driving the car, even when the cops came, he didn't move. He just hunched over the steering wheel like he was dead, laying over the steering wheel. And well, the police jerked all these guys up and arrested them all. And then they kept questioning me, like, who the hell are you? And, you know, and when they found out there wasn't anything up with me, they toted those guys away, and then they called a tow truck and they towed it away. I don't know what happened, but they arrested all those guys, and then they never called me. But I think the last words the police said to me was, oh, they were probably just drunk or something, you know, it wasn't anything personal. I don't know, I kind of disagree. I mean, you know, that Ramada deal went south, and you know, that Solomon Brothers building in New York thing, and you know, the bad meeting I had with what's his face. You know, I think he was mad that I did that Ramada deal, you know, without him, because remember I told you, he said, don't you do anything without me. So I think he was mad that I was doing a $12 million deal without involving him. But it's funny, but I had one of his guys who was sort of became friendly with me. I had him with me, so I guess he knew what was going on. I guess he knew the deal failed, but I don't know, maybe he was mad that the deal failed. Or maybe it had nothing to do with him at all, I don't know, but still, you know, I mean, they got my brother. And then, and before that happened, back in the early 80s, another funny thing. I'm just telling you all this stuff because I'm kind of figuring if I'm going to run, all this baloney's going to come out, and I just want you to hear it from me. When I went fishing one day, I came back from, I told you when I would go fishing it would be at 2 days at a time, but usually a pretty big deal. And in any case, after I went out fishing one day for 2 days, when I came back, I was very tired, and my first mate and the other first mate left, and the second first mate said, why don't you go get something to eat, because otherwise you're going to fall asleep at the wheel on the way home, which was a big danger, and it happened to all of us. And luckily, I never had an accident, but we always talked about how hard it was to drive home after a weekend of fishing, because you're rocking and rolling on the boat out there for 2 days, and so you're really tired, and then by the time Sunday night comes, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're driving home, or even if it's only 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But so I came home, and I unfortunately was involved in a divorce with my wife, who was my high school, I married my high school sweetheart. I had two beautiful boys. But I had a very big life insurance policy on me, and my wife was having an affair with my accountant, believe it or not. And he used to be my fishing buddy, but then that kind of stopped. And I wasn't really mad at him or anything, but kind of never figured I'd see him again. And he stopped doing my accounting for me. But in any case, make a long story short, when I came back from 2 days of fishing, I was so tired that my first mate said, Ben, you know, you better go get something to eat, and, you know, I'll go with you. And so I said, okay, well, we'll go to such and such a restaurant. So I went there, and when I got there, they when the waiter came out, he said, "Oh," he said, and I look at the guy and I'm like, you know, this guy looks awful familiar to me. And he said, "Boy, you really look tired." And I looked at him and I thought, holy crap, the waiter is my old accountant who was having a love affair with my wife, getting a divorce from him. The divorce was still going. And I didn't want a divorce. She did. He just came in from work one day and she said she wanted, I had paid to change the front door and she changed the lock on me. And I was really young. My God, I was in my 20s, you know. You could get divorced easily when you're in your 20s, trust me, guys, all you young fellows out there and young girls. So I came back, and next thing I know, I'm being served by my accountant. Now, why my accountant was pretending he was a server, or whether he had a legitimate job there, or whether he just arranged to put himself into that position to where he could serve me, I don't know. But the truth is that he was there on that day and he was serving me, and and he said, "Boy, you know, where you been?" I said, "I was out fishing at the canyon." He said, "Oh, I know how tired that makes you." Well, of course he knew. He used to go with me, so that's why he said that. He said, "Oh, you must be really exhausted." He said, "I know how tired that can make you." He said, "Well, this food this food will wake you right up." So I'm thinking, well, yeah, he is right, you know, and it was October, and and it was Sunday, and it was the end of the evening, dinner hour, and he said, "You're the last customer that we're going to have because we close for the winter," which was usual and customary. Restaurants all close down at the New Jersey seashore in October, and they're open for a couple of weekends in October and September, and then after that they close for the whole winter, and then they open it up again for the weekends in the spring, and then they open all the time for the summer, and then they open it just for weekends for a few weekends, and then they close again. So there's a time period where they're only open on the weekends, and I was there the last day that they were going to be open for that year. I think this was 2000 or 1984. I think it was 1984 October. And so I was there. It was the last, and he said to me, he said, "You're the last customer that we're going to have." He said, "Because we're closing the door now." It was after 5 o'clock. So I was in there with, I'm going to show you a picture of the fellow who went with me, and I ordered breakfast because I thought I'd get some coffee and some eggs and maybe a steak or something. So I ordered a good hearty breakfast and a glass of orange juice and coffee too. But I ordered a glass of orange juice. That was the unusual sort of thing about this. And it came in when he brought it out, it was in a frosted brown glass. But you know, one of those glasses that's about this big around, and like a tall glass, but it's like this big around, and you couldn't see through the side, but the bottom was clear. So if you looked through the bottom, it was like clear glass. So I was, as soon as I got that orange juice, I started to drink it. And so I upended it and was wolfing it down, and it smelled like it had something volatile in it. Like, I thought it was alcohol. I figured maybe he spiked it with vodka as like a ceremonious, and I figured even if he's having an affair with my ex or whatever, I figured whatever, we're still buds, I guess. But so I wasn't like I was going to punch him out or anything, and it wasn't like I had any trouble finding another girlfriend, so we really didn't give a crap. I mean, I just didn't want to be poisoned or anything like that. But I had a really big life insurance policy, and he knew, and my ex knew, of course. So I was drinking this glass of orange juice, and as I was drinking it, I could smell something coming out of the glass. And it smelled like either alcohol or acetone or formaldehyde. It was very aromatic, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was because I wasn't a druggie or anything. I never took a pill of any kind in my life up until then, other than a penicillin pill. And I didn't smoke pot or drink alcohol or anything like that. So I was totally clean, but I was really tired because I had been at the wheel for 2 days and all night long, Saturday night. Well, while I was drinking the glass and I could smell this, the orange juice was so delicious to me tasting, and I was so hungry and thirsty that I just was wolfing it down, even though it smelled, and I figured, well, you know, maybe he put alcohol in it or something, and maybe he figures that's going to help me or something. And either way, I didn't think anything bad of it. But my friend could see through the bottom of the glass. And he said, Ben, he said, stop drinking that. My first mate. And I said, what's the matter? And I put the glass, and he said, there's something brown, you know, like brown, like liquid mercury or something floating in the bottom of the glass. He says there's like bubbles of brown, like brown metal, like mercury or something, but brown. And it's, you know, sinking to the bottom of the glass. He said there's something in. He said there's something in there. They're the exact words he used. Something in there sinking in the bottom of the glass. It's brown color. So that was this fellow right here. This fellow right here. His name is Mitch. He was my first mate that day. Mitch Malatesta. But in any case, so I put the glass down and I stirred it and I looked in because he kept pointing at it and saying, bad, 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 Ben, don't drink that. So I stirred it and there were blobs of brown, like brown, metallic, shiny brown blobs. To make a long story short, so I put the glass down, and as soon as I stopped stirring the orange juice, the blobs sank to the bottom of the glass like instantly. They just sank like they were mercury. And you know, mercury being like heavy like lead, it would just sink in the liquid. But if you, and then it would conglomerate back into a single blob. And then when you started, it would break apart into multiple blobs, just like a lava lamp. It looked exactly like a lava lamp. If you all know what a lava lamp is, back when I was a kid, lava lamps were the thing, you could buy them at the mall. But when you stop stirring it, the brown blobs would just conglomerate together, and then they would sink very quickly. Within 5 seconds, all the blobs would be to the bottom of the glass. That's how fast and heavy they were. It was like liquid metal. It would sink instantly. And I had already drank half of the glass. And I was so thirsty, I mean, I was even thinking about drinking the rest of it anyway, after I let the blobs sink to the bottom. And I was thinking, well, maybe it's some kind of sugar that this fella put in, because I don't think there's any hard feelings between us, even though he might be doing something to my wife. I might be palling around with my wife. I figured being fishing buddies is more important than anything else. Anyway, after he took the glass away right away, and then he said, this food's going to make you wake right up. He said, you're going to have more energy than you ever had in your life, is what he said to me. I didn't know what he meant by that, but I didn't think anything bad was going to happen. I ate the rest of my food and I left. Brand new 280Z turbo car, and left. Now I'm on my way home. It's just been 30 minutes since I drank the glass of orange juice because I was moving fast. I wanted to go home before I fell asleep. And my girlfriend was having a party at the house. I had a big redwood hot tub in the yard. So take that out, or redwood. Think of that poor redwood tree that got chopped down. And I made a big giant hot tub. I bought a kit and I built it myself. It was a big gigantic, with the help of a friend who sold these things. And he and I together put this kit together, made out of real redwood. I had 1.5 inch thick redwood slats, and it was like almost 8 feet in diameter, and it was like deep enough that the water level was, you could stand up in it, and the water was up to here. And it was almost up, you could drown in the damn thing, that's how deep it was. And it was hooked up to a 125,000 BTU gas heater, and it was outside. We would only use it when it was cooler, like in the fall. So we were just starting to use it again. And my girlfriend was over, and she was planning to have a hot tub party that night, even though it was Sunday night and she knew I was going to be tired. She invited her friends over. On the way home, I had to drive down the Garden State Parkway until I got to the Atlantic City Expressway. And by the time I hit the Garden State Parkway, I was feeling like not tired anymore. I went from being exhausted to being wide awake. And I thought, this is cool. And I started to turn the stereo up louder on my brand new Z-Car. It had a beautiful stereo in it. And it was dark, and I'm driving home. Then I got to the Atlantic City Expressway, and there was a big clover leaf. I had to make a 270-degree turn to the right to get on the Atlantic City Expressway, heading west back towards the Philadelphia, Cherry Hill, Lindenwold direction. And as I got on the Atlantic City Expressway, I started to feel like I was so awake that it was getting a little scary. My chest was pounding, my heart was pounding, and I started to think, okay, there was speed in that glass of orange juice, because I started to think about the orange juice and wondering what it was. And I'm putting two and two together, and I'm thinking, that's why he told me that this food's going to wake you right up, that there was some kind of speed in the glass. And he put that in there to save me from falling asleep at the wheel, because, hey, we're all buds, you know, just because he's having sex with my wife and we're separated. It doesn't mean you wouldn't try to help me, or perhaps maybe kill me to get the life insurance. I don't know. But I'm driving home, and then it got worse. Bottom line is, it got worse and worse and worse as I drove home. And I saw every single sign. If you know anything about the AC Expressway, Atlantic City Expressway, it's a straight highway. And I saw every single sign all the way down the expressway until I got to what they call the North-South Freeway, which I think is Highway 42. And then if you turn right on that, which would be to the north, and you go about another 20 miles, you come to the entrance of the Walt Whitman Bridge and then the Ben Franklin Bridge. And then beyond that would be the Tacony-Palmyra Bridge. All these bridges going over the Delaware River into Philadelphia. And I could, from where I was 60 miles from that, but I could see every sign along the way and read the writing, even though obviously couldn't see it. It was a mental thing where my brain was, it was almost like an LSD thing, you know, where you could see all of these signs lined up. And I remember having a stereo was starting to sound better and better and better, and that song Caribbean Queen came on, which was one of my favorite songs at the time, and I had that thing turned all the way up, and it was I was starting to sweat, and so I rolled the window down, power windows down the window, and I had my arm hanging out the window, and I was just going 80 miles an hour in my turbocharged brand new Z-Car, and listening to the Caribbean Queen song, full blast. And I remember squeezing the steering wheel of the car and feeling like I could just rip it right out of the dashboard. I felt so strong. Now usually, after a fishing trip like that, being the captain at the wheel all night, all weekend, you're so tired you'd be lucky if you made it home without dozing off at the wheel. But tonight I had felt that tremendous power, where I felt the strength in my hands, arms, that I could just rip the steering wheel off the wheel. And I didn't feel angry or hostile toward anybody. I just felt so good. But I was poisoned, is what it was, some kind of poison. And when I got home, I was like, I told my girlfriend, I said, I feel like something's the matter. You know, my heart was pounding. And next thing you know, so I went in the hot tub with everybody. We had to, you know, I didn't want to be a bad host. So I went in the hot tub, and we all had a couple of laughs and everything. And the hot water was making it worse for me. So I said, well, I have to get out, you know. So I got out, and I couldn't sit down or lay down. I had to just keep walking around, because as soon as I sat down, my heart would race even faster, and I felt like I was going to have a heart attack or something. I was really starting to get scared. I never felt like that before. Wasn't out of breath or anything, but my heart was pounding so hard I never felt anything like that. And I had never taken speed or anything like that, so I didn't know what that would do to you. Maybe if I had taken cocaine from time to time or whatever, maybe I would have not been so nervous about this whole thing. But I had never taken any drugs before, so I didn't know how you feel when you get charged up with some kind of dope or speed or something like that. Well, the guests left. I went upstairs and had a love affair with my, I hadn't had sex with my girlfriend, and then after that I fell asleep for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then I woke right up again, and my heart started up again, and I went downstairs to the living room and turned the TV on. I was watching CNN or something, and next thing I know, it was getting worse and worse and worse. And then I went outside and I thought maybe if I jog around the block, which I liked to jog. So I jogged around the block, and then again I came in. I just couldn't settle down or calm down. I took a cold shower that made me feel a little bit better. Then I went round and around the block a few more times. By now it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's getting worse and worse. And then my heart started to actually hurt, where it wasn't just beating fast. I actually felt like I had a pain in my heart, and I thought, I'm going to die, something bad's happening. So I called my doctor. I had my doctor's office phone, and I knew he wouldn't be there because it was the middle of the night on a Sunday night, but I thought I could leave a message, and maybe there would be an emergency number for him. I should have called 911 in the hospital to come and get me, but I called my doctor first, and I left a message, and about a minute later he called back. I was surprised he called back. I didn't think he'd pay attention until Monday morning. This was a Sunday night now. And he called me back about a minute later, and he said, well, if it gets any worse, call an ambulance. He said, otherwise, come and see me at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he said, don't worry about coming in the front door. He said, I'll let you in the back door because there's too many people in the front. He said, and I want to see you immediately. So I did. I came and banged on the back door, and the secretary's there, the nurses let me in, and he listened to my heart. He took a urine test, which he lost, and the next thing you know, he said, yeah, you sound like you've been dosed with something, and he gave me Valium, and he gave me a big prescription for Valium, which I had never taken a Valium pill before in my life. The bottom line is I had to take these pills like every couple of hours. Then I filled a big prescription that he gave me. Now, I didn't know what Valium was, but I learned real fast, and I had to take these pills every 2 hours, otherwise my heart would race faster and faster and start up again. About a week later, I ended up in the hospital because it just didn't go away. And I went to Allentown when I was at my buddy's place, who was in the medical profession, and his wife was an RN who worked at Allentown General Hospital. And she was an RN in there, and she listened to my heart, and she said, let me take you to where I work. And that's the only reason I went. So I dropped everything, and I went with them to Allentown, and they treated me like King Royal. And they listened to my heart, they pulled blood, and then they came in the room about an hour later, and they said, oh, you're fine, but you need to take a Xanax or something. So they gave me some pills, and they gave me a shot of something, and I felt better. And then they said, you're just having a panic attack, and this whole thing was probably shocking to you, and so because you never took any speeding drug before, and it should wear away over time, but just take these, switch from Valium to Xanax and take that every few hours. So I did. They gave me a couple of pills. I took one. I drove home that night, and the next morning, they said there was nothing wrong with my heart, by the way, and they did some tests. And the next morning, when I got to work, my secretary had received a phone call already from my friend in the hospital, and they said, go to the emergency ward immediately at your local hospital. So I did, and I was wondering why they said go to the hospital when the night before they told me I was fine and sent me home. So I went to the hospital with a Xanax bottle of medicine in hand, and the girls at the front desk at the hospital, my local hospital in Voorhees, New Jersey, they laughed at me, and oh, you look fine to us. And the girls were teasing me, like, because I was, I guess, handsome back in those days and wearing a new suit and everything. And so I told them the story, and they admitted me right away, and they called Allentown, and they put me in a room, and I ended up staying for almost like a week, over a week, almost 10 days. And they did all kinds of tests. But while I was in there, the doctor wouldn't come in the room. No doctor ever came in the room. It was like they stayed away from me. And then two government men showed up with blue suits on, blue-black suits, and they had a young secretary with them, or a nurse, and they pushed me into, they wanted to take me outside to give me medicine because the hospital wouldn't let them give me the pills. That they wanted to give me some pills or something that the hospital didn't want me to take. So they didn't want anything to do with it. So these guys were pushing me outside like secret agent guys. They weren't dressed like doctors. They were just dressed up like FBI agents or something. And they wouldn't look at me or show me their face, but the girl would look at me, and she was very young. They pushed me. When they found out that the elevator went to the basement and there was no one there, they pushed me out into the basement, and it was dark down there, and they had a little light, and they took a flask, and out of the flask, it was metal, stainless steel. They unscrewed the lid, and they poured out 6 pills or 8 pills, and they gave them to me. They were blue, and they were heavy, like metal pills. And they said, take these, it'll make you feel better. So I took them, and they gave me a little glass of water, and they pushed me in the elevator back up to the room. And then they came back the next day, and they did the same thing to me. And the doctor never came in the room, and then a couple days later they discharged me. There's no record as to what kind of pills they gave me, but they were heavy and they were blue, and there's no record of any of this. So they gave me some secret drug or something. And these guys were not doctors, they were agents of some kind for the government. And they wouldn't look at me, but they were there only to make sure that I took the pills. And so that's it. And thereafter, he said basically it was I had right branch bundle blockage, and it was basically there was like an attempt made on my life is what it was. And I called the police, and the restaurant was closed, and the police couldn't do anything because there was nobody at the restaurant. There was nobody to debrief. And so nothing ever happened other than, you know, there was an attempt made on my life, I guess, to get my life insurance policy is all I could think of. So I'm just telling you, watch out what you eat, watch out what you drink. Bad things can happen to you even though you're a good person. So, well, anyway, we'll talk about more things tomorrow. Have a nice day, folks. Love you.